Well, hello everybody and welcome to Chef's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to be making something which is called a paradise cake from a recipe from Marks and Spencer. Now I've looked on the internet at various paradise cakes and they seem to be different things. Many of them have 2 or 3 layers of sponge cake of different colours and put different ingredients in, but this one from Marks and Spencer's app that I have on my tablet is actually a loaf cake, and the ingredients are sort of bananas and pineapple and pecans and sultanas and some spices, cinnamon and ginger as well. It's a fairly straightforward recipe, and I've started off by preheating my oven to 180 Celsius, that's 160 Celsius with a fan, 350 Fahrenheit, gas mark 4. And for the ingredients I have 200 grams of self-raising flour, 200 grams of light soft brown sugar, 2 bananas, a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ground ginger, a quarter of a teaspoon of salt and half a teaspoon of baking soda. I have 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, 100 millilitres of vegetable oil and 90 millilitres of melted butter, which I've allowed to cool. Now the Marks and Spencer's recipe actually just used 175 millilitres of oil and no butter, but I prefer having some butter in there. I have 2 large eggs, that would be extra large in the USA. I have 140 grams of pineapple chunks, which I've chopped into 4 pieces each chunk. Now the recipe called for a 216 gram tin of pineapple chunks and drain the juice. So I actually had a larger tin, but I've calculated that once the juice has been drained, I need 140 to 142 grams of pineapple chunks. I have 50 grams of pecans, which I have chopped into roughly chopped, and I have 75 grams of sultanas. I also have some extra butter and some cream cheese and some icing sugar to make a topping later, but I'll get onto that later. So the first thing I'm going to do is to start with the bananas. We'll start with a wet mixture, and the first of those is going to be the bananas. So I set everything else aside, and into a bowl I'm going to put the bananas and I'm going to mash them. With a fork, just roughly mash them because I'm going to use my hand mixer to beat them later. I've done this at the last minute so they don't discolour. I could have done it earlier and added some lemon juice to stop them from discolouring, but that's fine as it is. Now into that banana I'm going to add the oil, the butter, the eggs and the vanilla extract, and I'm going to whisk those until they're all combined. So that's okay. So I'm just going to set that to one side for a minute, and then I'm going to take the flour into another bowl with the sugar and the cinnamon, the ground ginger, the baking soda and the salt. I'm going to whisk those around, and I've broken up any lumps that I saw of the brown sugar. It tends to clump, but again, when it's mixed with the wet mixture, it should break it up quite nicely. So having got the dry ingredients mixed together, I'm simply going to pour the wet ingredients into them. I should say I have a loaf tin, a £2 or 900 gram loaf tin, which I've greased and lined with parchment paper, ready for the cake. So then I'm going to mix the wet into the dry, just to get it combined. So that's nicely combined, and I still have a few chunks of banana there, which is fine. So the next thing to do is to drop the pineapple, the sultanas and the pecans into the mixture, and then mix them all together. And then we're going to put that into our loaf tin. And I'm going to put that in the oven and bake it for an hour. Then I will test it with a skewer, and if it comes out clean, that will be it done. If there's still some batter attaching to the skewer, then I'm going to put it back in the oven and bake it longer so that the skewer does come out clean. Then I'm going to take it out and let it cool down for 15 minutes before I remove it from the tin and place it on a wire rack and let it cool completely. Then I'm going to make a frosting to put on top. So I'll be back with you when it's cooled down and we're ready to do the frosting. Well, I'm back with you, and our cake has baked. I let it bake for an hour and I tested it with a skewer, and it was still slightly moist in the centre with crumbs attached to the skewer, so I baked it for a further 5 minutes. Then I've taken it out, I've let it cool down for 15 minutes, then taken it out and put it onto a wire rack and let it cool completely. So this is how it looks at the moment. And now I'm just going to make a buttercream for the top. I was going to do a butter and cream cheese frosting, but I've decided just to do butter. And so for that I have 200 grams of butter, which is softened, and 200 grams of icing sugar. And the first thing I'm going to do is to mix the butter together to make sure that every part of it is soft. Okay, that's good enough for that. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sieve the icing sugar into the bowl with the butter. That's to get rid of any lumps, because icing sugar has a tendency to clump. Okay. So then I'm just going to mix that together. I'm going to just pull it around a bit first. If I start the mixer fast, the icing sugar will go everywhere. Okay, so the icing sugar is mixed together with the butter. I'm just going to pull off some of the excess. Off the beaters. And then I'm going to take a spatula and put that icing sugar and put the buttercream into a piping bag, which I've fitted with a nozzle. You could just spread it over with a spatula, of course. So then what we're going to do is push the icing sugar down, twisting the bag until it begins to come out of the nozzle, and then just pipe it onto the cake. Like that. And basically that's it. So then you could put this in the fridge and let it set up, but I'll just turn it around, and I'm going to cut a piece from that side. so you can see. So that's our cake. Looks very moist. And I'm going to have a little taste. It's lovely and moist, has a wonderful taste of that banana and the pineapple and the crunch inside of the pecans. It's a very good cake and very easy to make. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please give it a try. So that's going to be it for today. Please give me the thumbs up below the video if you like the video, and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on to see the recipe on my blog, and I'll also put a link to that recipe below the video. I will be back with you in the near future with another video, so until then, happy baking.